The bills crinkled like autumn leaves in Samuel Harwick's shaking fingers. $23. Not enough to fix the roof, but enough to rid himself of what he called his burden. She doesn't talk much, Samuel said, wiping sweat from his forehead. Doctor says her mind ain't right. Can't work properly. Can't marry properly either. The mountain man stood silent, his weathered face unreadable. His eyes moved past Samuel to the girl on the porch. She sat perfectly still, watching clouds drift across the valley. What's her name? Clara. She's 16, but acts younger sometimes. Other times. Samuel shrugged. Other times, she says things that don't make sense. Sees things that ain't there. Or maybe she sees things that are there. Samuel's hand tightened around the money. Look, mister, you want her or not? Winter's comin', gee, and I got 3 other mouths to feed. She eats more than she's worth. The mountain man walked to the porch. Clara looked up at him with eyes like storm clouds. When he extended his hand, she studied it for a long moment before placing hers in his palm. You don't have to come with me, he said quietly. Yes, I do. Her voice carried a strange certainty. The mountain's been calling me for weeks. Samuel shifted uncomfortably. See what I mean? Crazy talk. Maybe. The mountain man helped Clara to her feet. Or maybe some people hear things the rest of us have forgotten how to listen for. He handed Samuel an additional $10. For her dignity. Samuel pocketed the money without meeting his daughter's eyes. Clara picked up a small cloth bundle from beside the door. Everything she owned fit in her hands. Ready? The mountain man asked. Clara nodded, then looked back at her father one final time. Goodbye, Papa. Samuel had already turned away. The path wound upward through pine and stone. Clara's worn boots slipped on loose gravel. The mountain man slowed his pace without a word. You don't have to pretend to be kind, she said after 20 minutes of silence. I'm not pretending. Papa said mountain folk are mean. Said you probably bought me for. She couldn't finish. Your papa said a lot of things that weren't true. Clara stumbled on a root. His hand steadied her elbow, gentle as morning rain. She jerked away. Don't. I won't touch you unless you're falling. Why not? You paid for me. He stopped walking. I paid your father to get you away from him. That's different. Below them, the valley looked smaller. Her father's house was just a speck of gray against brown fields. Clara realized she could barely make out the porch where she'd spent so many silent hours. What's your name? She asked. Thomas. Thomas Grayson. Mr. Grayson. Just Thomas. They climbed higher. The air grew thinner, cleaner. Clara found herself breathing deeper than she had in years. Are you going to hurt me, Thomas? No. Are you going to sell me to someone else? No. Then what am I supposed to do? Thomas paused at a switchback in the trail. Whatever you want. Sleep when you're tired. Eat when you're hungry. Think your own thoughts. I don't know how to do that. You'll learn. The trees grew denser around them. Clara realized the voices from the valley had faded. The constant whispers of neighbors, the harsh judgment in every glance, the weight of being unwanted. Up here, only wind spoke through branches. How much further? She asked. Not far. You tired? No. She surprised herself. I feel lighter. Thomas smiled for the first time. Mountain air does that. Clara looked back one more time. The valley seemed like another world entirely. The cabin appeared through the trees like something from a dream Clara never dared to have. Not the dark shack she'd imagined, but a sturdy home with carved shutters and a stone chimney. This is where you live? This is where we live, Thomas said, opening the door. Clara stepped inside and froze. Books lined every wall. Real books with leather spines and gold lettering. A wooden table held brushes and paints. Canvases leaned against the fireplace, showing landscapes she'd never seen but somehow recognized. You paint. Some. You hungry? She nodded, still staring. Everything was clean but lived in. Comfortable but not fancy. Nothing like her father's cramped house that reeked of tobacco and broken promises. Thomas moved to the stove. Stew's been cooking all day. You knew you were bringing me back. Hoped. Clara ran her fingers along a bookshelf. Can you read all these? Most. Can you read? Some. Papa said it was wasting time. Papa said a lot of foolish things. Thomas ladled stew into 2 bowls. There's a bedroom upstairs. Clean sheets, warm quilts. Where do you sleep? Downstairs. Near the fire. Clara sat at the table. The stew smelled better than anything her mother ever made. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone mean. Someone who'd. She stopped. I know what you expected. Thomas sat across from her. I'm sorry the world taught you to expect that. Clara took a bite. The meat was tender, the broth rich with herbs. Why did you really buy me? Because you needed somewhere safe. And because this mountain gets lonely. That's all. Thomas met her eyes. That's everything. For the first time in 16 years, Clara felt like she might belong somewhere. Clara stood at the cabin window, watching storm clouds gather. Her eyes tracked patterns others couldn't see. Rain's coming from the north. Heavy rain. It'll last 3 days. Thomas looked up from his carving. The weather report said clear skies all week. Weather report's wrong. The first drops hit the glass an hour later. Thomas set down his knife. How did you know? I just see things. Feel them before they happen. Clara's voice went quiet. Papa said it was devil talk. Your papa was scared of what he didn't understand. Clara turned from the window. You don't think I'm touched in the head? I think you see things the rest of us miss. Thunder rolled across the mountain. Clara closed her eyes, tilting her head like she was listening to something beyond the storm. Mrs. Henderson's cow broke through the fence. She's crying in her kitchen right now. Mrs. Henderson lives 20 miles down the mountain. I know. But I can feel her sadness from here. It's heavy like the rain. Thomas studied Clara's face. What else do you feel? Pain. Lots of pain in the valley. People are hurting each other and themselves. Children are going hungry while their fathers drink. She opened her eyes. But up here, it's different. Quieter. You're not broken, Clara. You're gifted. Gifted people don't get sold by their families. Blind people don't recognize light. Thomas stood and walked to her. Your father couldn't see what you really are. What am I really? Someone who feels what others feel. Sees what others can't. Knows things before they happen. His voice was steady, certain. That's not a curse. That's power. Clara stared at him. Nobody had ever called her powerful. The mountain spirits talk to people like you, Thomas continued. Always have. Your ancestors probably had the same gift. How do you know? Because mountains don't lie. And they've been whispering your name since the day I found you. For the first time, Clara smiled without hiding it. Hoofbeats echoed through the pines. Clara felt them before she heard them, a disturbance rippling up from the valley like a stone thrown in still water. 3 riders. Armed. They're angry. She stepped back from the window. One of them is Sheriff Donovan. Thomas reached for his rifle. You know him. He used to come around our place. Never helped when Papa beat Mama. Just watched and walked away. The horses appeared through the trees. Sheriff Donovan sat tall in his saddle, flanked by 2 deputies. His badge caught the morning light like a warning. Grayson. Donovan's voice carried across the clearing. Send out the girl. Thomas stepped onto the porch. "What's your business here, Sheriff? Girl's family wants her back. Says you stole her." Clara appeared beside Thomas. Donovan's eyes widened slightly, as if he was seeing her for the first time. "Nobody stole me," Clara said. Her voice rang clear and strong. "I was sold like cattle. Your father says different. Says you're sick in the head and need proper care." "My father's a liar." Donovan shifted in his saddle. "Girl, you don't talk to lawmen that way." "I'll talk to corrupt lawmen any way I please." The word corrupt hung in the air like smoke. One deputy's hand moved toward his gun. Clara stepped forward, and something changed in the clearing. The wind stilled. Birds stopped singing. "You want to know what I see, Sheriff?" Clara's eyes locked on his. "I see you taking money from the Miller family to look the other way when they beat their workers. I see you visiting Widow Morrison's house every Tuesday when her husband's grave is barely cold. I see you drinking away the bribes in Murphy's backroom." Donovan's face went pale. "You're talking nonsense." "Am I?" Clara smiled, and it wasn't a gentle smile. "Want me to tell your deputies about the missing evidence from the Henderson murder? Or should I mention the land deeds you've been falsifying?" "Shut your mouth, girl." "No." Clara descended the porch steps. "I'm done shutting my mouth." The town square buzzed with market day crowds when Clara walked down from the mountain. Word of her confrontation with Sheriff Donovan had spread like wildfire. People whispered and pointed, but none dared approach. Samuel Harwick stood by the courthouse steps, counting coins from his crop sale. When he saw his daughter, the money slipped through his fingers. "Clara? What are you doing here?" "I came to return something." Clara's voice carried across the square. "Your shame. Girl, you get back up that mountain before." "Before what, Papa?" "Before people learn what you really are." A crowd began forming. Clara climbed onto a wooden crate, making herself visible to everyone. "My name is Clara Harwick," she announced. 6 months ago, my father sold me to a stranger for $33. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Samuel's face went red. "She's lying. She's sick in the head." "I see Sheriff Donovan in the crowd," Clara continued. "The same sheriff who watched my father beat my mother and did nothing. The same sheriff who takes bribes from anyone with enough money." Donovan pushed forward. "You can't prove any of that." "Can't I?" Clara's eyes swept the crowd. "Mrs. Patterson, tell them about the night your barn burned. Tell them how Sheriff Donovan refused to investigate because the Miller family paid him to look away." Mrs. Patterson stepped forward, her voice shaking. "She's right. He said there wasn't enough evidence, but we all knew who did it." "And you, Mr. Foster," Clara turned to the bank manager. "Tell them about the loan papers you forged with the sheriff's help." Foster tried to back away, but the crowd pressed closer. One by one, Clara called out their crimes. The corrupt deals, the covered-up violence, the systematic abuse of power that had ruled their town for years. Samuel grabbed her arm. "Stop this." Clara looked down at him with eyes full of quiet fire. "I'm just getting started, Papa." Clara stood at the mountain's edge, watching smoke rise from the valley below. The town looked smaller now, like a child's toy village scattered across the earth. Thomas approached quietly, his boots crunching on pine needles. "Sheriff Donovan resigned this morning," he said. "Foster's confessing to the bank fraud. Your father's being investigated." "I know." Clara's voice held no satisfaction, only calm certainty. "I felt it happen." "Any regrets about going down there?" "No." She turned to face him. "For the first time in my life, I told the truth. All of it." Thomas studied her face. The frightened girl from the porch was gone. In her place stood someone who knew her own power. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now I become who I was always meant to be." Clara looked back at the valley. "They called me broken because I saw what they couldn't." heard what they refused to listen to, felt what they were too afraid to feel. And now I understand the difference between being damaged and being divine. The wind carried voices up from below. People calling for change, demanding justice, finally finding the courage to speak truths they'd hidden for years. You didn't save me, Thomas. I know. You just saw me when no one else would. The mountain saw you first, Thomas said. I just listened. Clara smiled, and for the first time, it reached her eyes completely. Then I'm exactly where I belong.